give someone a bad AI output and ask them what's wrong with it. The people who just accept it as is are procedural, and the people who find three things that don't make sense are the architects.
Welcome to Ready Set Exec, the podcast where we sit down with executives across North America to unpack their business, leadership, and expertise.
And every other week, join us for Market Watch, all things hiring, real insights and no fluff.
Hi, everyone. I'm here with Alan Martinez, brand strategist and founder of Noble Digital, the creator of the brand experience AI operating system, BX AIOS. Say that 5 times fast. A framework for constitutional governance of corporate AI. He is best known for engineering the largest exit in Shark Tank history, turning Plated from near insolvency into a $300 million acquisition in just 18 months through a conversion architecture built on a single psychological insight. Previously, he had been handpicked by Quentin Tarantino to direct for a Band Apart, deploying over $25 billion in media for global brands, with creative work held in MoMA's permanent collection. So, good to have you on, Alan.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good
And
to
today
be here.
we're talking all things AI, and of course your book, which is out for sale right now on Amazon, which we'll share in the show notes. So I think one of the things we're talking about is a lot of companies. I mean, everybody's rushing to try to bring in AI. It's a buzzword. Everybody knows this, right? Every company's trying to bring AI into their companies. But a lot of people are bringing it in without really thinking it through. It's more like shiny object
syndrome.
And there's a bit of a gap between where leadership wants it to be used and then operators. Right. And I mean, it's a bit of a mess in terms of, let's say, the implementation, because it affects everything across the whole organization, right? Not just the new toy you have or tech. What are you seeing out there?
So here's what's happening right now in mid-market companies mostly, and enterprise have their own solutions, but I really focus on mid-markets because they can't afford to get this wrong. What's happening is they're celebrating that AI saved them 10 hours a week, right? Marketing cranks out emails faster, support closes tickets faster, recruiting screens resumes in seconds, right? But nobody's measuring what happens next. And somewhere after that, someone is spending maybe another 10 hours a week rewriting those emails or whatever because the tone was off, or they're reconciling what the recruiting bot promised versus what the hiring manager expected, right? So I think someone in legal is trying to reconstruct what the system actually told the candidate later on, and that's another mess. We call it the hairball. So I call it the reconciliation text, and I would say for mid-market companies, it's running between $200,000 and $400,000 a year, but it doesn't have a line item, right? So it shows up as burnout. It shows up as, we're too busy to think strategically. It also shows up as HR teams that are supposedly AI augmented, but somehow overtime costs are up 30% or whatever, right? So when people ask what I do, I help you stop paying that tax, and I help you build the architecture that was missing when you hit the deploy button.
No, it totally makes sense. And you're right about sort of the extra time involved in sort of the implementation of this and just the daily use, right? Where you're having to babysit now, right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the things you brought up that was kind of interesting was the idea of AI is like a whole new class of employee, right?
Yes.
That it is now a new baby that's very high capabilities, but it's still a baby in the sense it doesn't know what it's doing. You got to steer it the right direction and give it the right inputs and so on.
Right.
And so how do you onboard, your AI agent into your business?
Yeah, the problem you're describing is the simplest way to explain it is to your leadership team is you treat AI exactly like a new hire, right? You imagine you hired a new employee. We'll call him Agent Smith.
Yeah.
But the AI logs into Salesforce, a Slack account, and you say, go figure it out. And by the way, it'll be it's already going that way. Like, go figure things out, like someone that works for you. And you better give them an onboarding packet. Like, there's a tone that has to be there, what they need to say to customers, how they handle a refund, what your red lines are. All those things need to be figured out before you implement anything, right? And what's happening is right now, companies are hiring thousands of Agent Smiths, so to speak, and skipping the onboarding. They give them a key card, and that's the login. Barely an employee handbook, and that's their governance, right? And so what my framework is just automating that onboarder. The charter is the job description, right? The canon is the culture handbook, so to speak. And the evidence packets are the performance review. And this is all happening in real time. So you can optimize this, and this is going to get smarter over time. And let's not forget about the fact that we're going to have institutional memory. So things that humans, we forget what happened 5 years ago, let alone 10 or 20 years ago. That's like long gone. Well, the AI doesn't forget any of those things. And it can look at data internally, your first party data, and figure out what's going on and give you intelligence in real time versus these quarterly reports that we're used to of like what happened retroactively. Now we're going to have like more of a progressive kind of a view of what's going on in the company. So I would say if you treat an AI like an employee that needs to be managed, I would say 90% of the risk disappears because you already know how to do this. You're just not applying it to machines yet.
So following that analogy of like a onboarding package, what are some best practices for this? Like things that you should be doing from day one, like you want to deploy an agent. Let's say I'll just use a basic example, like a customer service bot for an e-commerce store that is responding
Right.
to customer requests, right? How do you do this whole onboarding piece for them? Like what would the best practice steps that are essential, let's say?
Yeah, well, there's three gaps that are breaking. And when I analyze AI deployments, three gaps show up every single time. And the first is the governance gap. Your company has AI tools running that IT doesn't know about, legal hasn't approved, and finance isn't tracking. And everyone knows it's happening, but nobody says it out loud. And I call this the shadow ledger. The second part of that is identity gap. The employer brand says we treat people with respect, and your benefits bot sounds like a debt collector, right? And so your
Yeah.
onboarding AI uses language that's technically correct but emotionally dead, and that's also going to be very important. And that's the identity gap. That is your AI improvising your culture at scale, which can be dangerous if it doesn't have it right. And then the third is the accountability gap. When something goes wrong, can you prove what happened? And most teams are reverse engineering their own systems from Slack threads. So when an employee asks, "Why did I get flagged?" you can't answer it with the model. The model thought so, right? You need evidence, and so you need that proof. And especially if it gets to legal level, you have that proof. So these three gaps are why 70% of AI projects fail to produce business outcomes. The tools work just fine. The architecture doesn't. They don't have any architecture. And I would say for HR specifically, if you can't govern it, you can't defend it. And if you can't
Yeah.
defend it, it's a liability and not a capability.
And I mean, on the legal side, just as an aside, we've seen now just all the new AI lawsuits popping up. Like
Yeah.
it's going to be a gold rush for lawyers going after AI. It's like here's a new revenue stream, right? Because there seems like they screw up often. So
Exactly.
on the legal side, like what can you do to protect your company from legal issues from HR side? Like
Every Yeah.
a simple example for someone would be AI bot is writing your job postings and they write something that is would create a human rights abuse or human rights complaint, or just some wording in a job posting was wrong, created by AI. No one vetted it, they just posted it. Oh, now we're getting sued because we said a certain,
Yeah.
I don't know, they said something that was really inappropriate, right? And you got sued for it. So
Yeah.
how do you on the legal side, what do you do for this?
So here's what's missing. Think of AI tools as the do stuff layer, right? The control plane is the rules
Mhm.
above the tools, right? Layer. And so it prevents every department from inventing its own version of the company, right? And what does this look like? We do it already. We already have this, but it's not implemented for machine. If you think of a brand guideline, that's the simplest way to like put an example, right? But the problem with brand guidelines is they're always executed by humans and then put in a PDF and then until someone screams you're off brand. And then the other half of the company like what does that mean? What does off brand mean? Well, imagine the AI being on brand all the time. So even when you write a message to a customer, it's already giving you guardrails. And the perfect example of this is like the app Canva. I don't know if you ever
Yeah.
play with that, but that
Yeah,
tool
we got it.
you put your brand colors in, and once your brand colors are in, it's a playground. You don't have to worry about like being on brand. That's a visual example of what I'm talking about. But imagine if the messaging and the wording, the red lines, everything that legal doesn't want you to say and everything that marketing does want you to say, all contained in a container, and it's passing through that filter. Now, my background, I didn't talk about my background, but my background is that of a director. I used to, well, I should back up and say where I got my whole start, because people are probably wondering, like, why, how does this guy know any of this stuff?
Yeah.
Why should we listen to you? And so I should start by saying I didn't start in tech. I started as a film director. Okay. I was trained by Linda Wyman. She built lynda.com that sold for 1.5 billion to LinkedIn. That was my first experience with system designs. And then I got handpicked by Quentin Tarantino right out of design school to direct for his commercial division. So over the years, my work deployed about $25 billion in media, and some of it ended up in the MoMA MoMA in New York City, and that's where they discovered me. But here's what matters for AI. On a film set, the director's job is coherence. You got 50 departments all, wanting their agenda, and you're trying to make them happy while you're trying to tell the story, right? And the truth is, if nobody's job is coherence on the set, you don't get a movie. You're going to get a bunch of beautiful shots that don't add up to a story, right? And I think corporate AI is the exact same problem, because marketing has AI, sales has AI, support has built a bot over the weekend that nobody knows about. Each one is locally smart and globally incoherent. And so what I do now is install the operating rules that keep that AI from turning into a fragmentation machine. And so, getting back to your question, like what do we do? The fix, it's for HR, I think it means defining the three categories of rules, like permissions. What is the AI allowed to do? It can draft interview scorecards. It can summarize benefit options. It can suggest coaching language, but it can't rank candidates without a human review, for example. It can't generate disciplinary language without a named approver, for example, right? So that's one, the permissions. Now, there's prohibitions. What must it never do? It can't use protected class information in screening. It can't make promises about compensation outside of approved bands, right? It can't bypass escalation triggers when confidence is low. And then the third one is obligations. What must it always do? It must disclose that it's AI. If it's asking, if someone wants to know, are you an AI? It's okay to say, yeah, I'm an AI and I'm still here to help you, right? It must capture evidence for every decision that affects employment. It must escalate edge cases to human. So that's governments that a machine can execute. It's not a PDF. It's not a training. It's architecture. So it moves very differently. And that's how you avoid these legal issues.
No, and that makes sense because without those guardrails of what you can't say, what it can and can't do, it can run amok, let's say. And with the AI hallucinations that are happening sometimes, like it's very we don't really know how it'll react in some cases, right? So having those strict rules in place, you hope that it's going to be following that. And so obviously,
and we didn't even touch on security, for example. And I'll just say really quickly, like I think that one thing that keeps engineers up at night is now AI agents can have a key card. This is more an enterprise solution. And I'm talking about enterprise because anybody that's going to really take AI seriously is going to be doing what enterprise is already starting to do. They can give them access to databases, to CRM, to pricing engines, to email systems, right? But even though the reason they do this, SailPoint does this. The reason they do that is that way. Oh, we know it's not a rogue AI. It's our AI. It's safe. It's got a key card. That's great. That solves one problem. Here's the other problem it doesn't solve. Once it's inside, what is it doing? And that's why we need the receipt. So you still need to have like an observable, who's watching the watcher, right? Like we need to have that view inside, because if you have zero receipts, then you're in big trouble. And so, some IT providers have solved who can get in, but nobody solved what they can do once they're in. And that's the gap that I closed. And so my whole system is upstream from all those builds. It's even from security. And I would say I build the constitutional layer that says, here's what you're allowed to promise, here's what you must never do, and here's what you escalate to the human. And critically, here's the evidence layer that proves what you did and why. Because when a regulator asks, and believe me, when regulators start coming into the picture, and they will, it's coming, right? Right now, this current administration has killed the prior AI Act that was going to put all this regulation. But guess what? Colorado and California still have their own. I think that the feds are fighting that and all that, but I'm here to say, who cares? You want to regulate your own, regardless of what the government says, you want regulation on your own system. Because I'll give you one embarrassing example, the Chevy Tahoe incident where the AI sold the guy a Tahoe for $1, right? Because why? They had no guardrails whatsoever. And he manipulated the AI to agree this is a legally binding offer, right? Oh yeah, it's a legally binding offer. You have the Tahoe for $1. Because they didn't build anything except throw up a bot. And
did he actually get the car?
I don't think he did, but I think what he did get, which was more important, is he got millions and millions of like retweets on Twitter or whatever he posted it. The social media went to town on this, and they were pretty embarrassed for about a good week or two. All the news picked up on this. So at the end of the day, when a regulator asks, why did your AI deny that customer, you need to answer this in 4 minutes, not in 4 weeks. And what do I mean by that? If you don't have this system in place and it's a mess and you're having all this chaos, and then this happens, trust me, you will spend weeks to months going back, looking at piecing together emails and Slack threads to figure out what the hell happened. And so that's the difference between retrieval and reconstruction. Reconstruction is going to cost you way more than I would ever charge to create architecture for your AI.
That makes sense, and some of the real world implications of this are pretty scary. I mean, I've heard in the
Yeah.
news, like, you know, these new children's toys that are AI enabled, and
Oh, yeah.
some of these toys, they're getting their pantsuit off because of the kid telling, the AI bot telling the kid to suicide or cause violence, or who knows what it was doing. But pretty scary. And I mean, that could ruin your brand and your whole company overnight. I mean, no one's going to
Exactly.
want to buy a toy now after, hearing that. It's pretty gross.
Haven't they seen the movie Megan? I'm kidding.
Well, that's the thing is media, and because I like that you've been in film, because you can appreciate media has told us all these worst case scenarios. I've seen all the movies, the
All right,
Megan,
let's talk about
the Terminators, like I've seen them all, but yet it hasn't stopped anybody from let's go full speed ahead, no regulation, no guardrails, full speed ahead on the AI, because we got to beat China. Apparently, that's the message, right? Is we have to beat them before they beat us to Gen AI,
let me
and so
turn this
anything
around for people
goes.
listening that are for those who are terrified of AI and kind of frozen like you're torn between like I know we need AI, but at the same time this right these
Yeah,
problems that you're hearing about. Look, I'm going to tell you something. Aviation is dangerous.
yeah,
Flying is dangerous, but we have created a whole industry. We've created all these regulations. We have pilots that are trained around, they understand the principles of aerodynamics, all this stuff that we
yeah.
do to mitigate that. There's always danger when you fly, no matter what, even though there hasn't been a lot of accidents. Well, not this year, but you know what I'm saying? But before that, we had a kind of a crazy year this year. And AI is going to be the same thing. It's just going to be like assume like, look, this is a probabilistic machine. It's not deterministic, and this is where there's a tension because we're used to software where you can write if then statements and it's deterministic and it will follow the rules like a robot. AI is not that way. It's a thinker, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a negative thing at all. In fact, you don't want to constrain that. You want to keep that magic. That's what makes AI really powerful, but you have to code it the right way and architect the right way in order to bring out its best behavior while mitigating all the negative behavior, just like aviation does for itself, right? And one thing I should point out is we're talking about governance. Governance is table stakes. Like this is, I'm just saying, let's get guardrails on so we can do the fun part. What's the fun part? This is the brand advantage. When you figure all this stuff out, like this is when you start to get predictive intelligence. There's a lot of things you unlock when you start to do this right. And also like let's talk about the brand voice. Like people think brand and performance are two different departments. In AI, they're the same code. Okay. And here's why. If your AI sounds generic, like ChatGPT's default voice, it converts at average rates, creates average trust, and it's a commodity. So
Yeah.
if you feed your brand into the system, the best sales arguments your salespeople have had, your specific tone, your unique way of handling objections, the performance goes up. So I think the companies winning right now aren't just using AI to move faster. They're using AI to clone their best judgment, their best support, and their best rapport, that they have. So the brand experience AI operating system isn't just about safety. It's about taking your company's special sauce and the thing that makes you you and scaling it infinitely. Because once you lock this down, now it can make 1,000 to 10,000, a million decisions ongoing that are going to be on brand and on point. And that again, brand was always locked away in a PDF in a folder, and now we can
Yeah.
actually bring it to life, right? And that's the
Maybe
most
a couple of
compounding.
questions about that though,
Yeah,
because to me that's in theory sounds great, in practice though. So here's an idea, right?
yeah.
You're like, okay, let's use all the secret sauce from all our salespeople, train AI on all their emails from all of our team. The problem is all the emails from all of our team, you also have some bad salespeople in there. You have some people that has maybe set up like because we're human, we make mistakes. There's a lot of mistakes by
Right.
email we've made too. So now AI is trained on the best of us, like all the
Yep.
best work we've done in our company, but then also some of the crappy emails we sent that fell short. You know what I mean? And so it's like because we're not
Okay.
consistent as humans either. Like you're taking inconsistent data from humans and you're saying we're going to build a brand like a bot around our inconsistency. So it's like garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
You know,
Agreed.
how do you
So
how do you filter that? How do you improve that? Because that to me is the biggest issue. Like when you're training any kind of bot, you know.
when I do my strategy session, and a lot of people are claiming AI strategy. When I see what they're doing is strategy for maybe a agent implementation or something. When I'm doing strategy, I'm looking at the entire institution, the whole organization,
Mhm.
and I am speaking with leadership. And so leadership's going to decide that. They're going to be the ones that are going to find the winning emails and winning everything for me to start with, and I still have to take that and then refine that into some kind of logic that the AI can understand rapidly and deploy rapidly, right? So that is the work. I mean, what you're describing now, if I don't do that work and I just like, yeah, give me all your email. Yeah, that's what I think people are kind of doing, that ingestion. And that's a waste because it's just adding that. Again, the law of averages start to apply again. And you're getting the best and the worst salespeople. It's like, no, give me your top salesman who closed your biggest like client right now, like those top 2 or 3 salespeople, and have them be part of the conversation, have them be in the room. And that's another thing is that, we're not talking about change management on this talk much, but we probably should a little bit, because the change management part of it is that, that's shifting, and it's really the operators, it's really the champions in the company that are going to really help shape your AI and take it to the next level, because they have a lot to bring to the party. And also they're going to be able to manage things at scale if they want, because they're going to be able to bring like their knowledge and wisdom to the table and amplify that. So I think here's what I see with HR leaders right now is that you have 100% responsibility for AI transformation and zero authority to actually execute it, right? The CEO demands AI transformation. The CFO won't approve the budget without hard ROI. And, IT blocks tools for security reasons. So I think HR might be stuck in the middle with a mandate they can't fulfill. And that's where I call it the throwover. Companies don't know where to put AI, so they throw it over to HR, they throw it over to the CMO, just like they did with culture and engagement before, right? HR didn't ask for it, I don't think, right? So HR doesn't have the engineering resources to build it right, but HR gets blamed when it breaks. So I think the specific pain point for HR is, AI is your domain. It's not just about generating drafts. It's touching employee promises. It's actually having really difficult conversations. When you create an offer letter or a policy explanation, or you let someone, like, you don't choose someone for a position, I would say you want to examine those tough edge cases and really get into that and craft that, because once you do it one time, you're going to get like great returns, and now you can work a lot faster, because it's going to, the suggestion that it makes is going to be 80 to 100% there. And you're like, that's great.
Yeah.
I still need a human to go, yeah, I would say that. That's pretty much what I would say, right? Especially like termination communications and all that. So those aren't low stake moments. These are legal exposure moments. These are culture defining moments. And if the AI improvises in those moments without clear rules, you're scaling risk. So, so when people ask me who should own AI governance, it really depends. But HR could own it, CMOs could own it, tech could own it, but it depends if HR really understands the system shape and behavior, because behavior shapes culture, and that's going to influence like the whole team eventually.
No, and that's a big point about the culture piece, because if you have emails and communications internally or externally going out that are sound robotic, or people can easily find that it was written by a bot. I mean, like, what could be more impersonal than getting a termination letter that's like a bot letter to you, like, greetings, and like, you're like, wow, that was
Right.
great. I got fired over Zoom, and then I got a bot email that, like, spelled my name wrong or something, but because that's how my name was spelt in my workday, and it pulled
Right.
it from there. And I've told them for 5 years to change my name, but they haven't. And then the email was spelled wrong too.
Here's
They
what
wrote your name wrong in the invite. So
well, I think here's what's changing in the workforce and why HR should care. For about a century, we told workers the value comes from execution. The faster you type, the more spreadsheets you built, the more
yeah,
valuable you became. Now
productivity.
AI does the task fast, cheap, and at scale. So the value is shifting. Doesn't mean that you don't have value. The value is just shifting, right? When the calculator came out, we now took humans from becoming human calculators to doing other work, right? I think companies are hiring less for what can you do the thing versus like, can you decide what things should be done and when it's wrong or it's right. I think that's the difference between a doer and an architect. It's not so much seniority, it's more about judgment. So I think maybe here's the hiring test, like, give someone a bad AI output and ask them what's wrong with it. The people who just accept it as is are procedural, and the people who find 3 things that don't make sense are the architects. Procedural workers are being automated right now. The architects are building what comes next. So I'm thinking
Yeah.
for HR, this means rethinking how you screen, who you screen, how you onboard, how you develop people. You're not looking for tool fluency anymore, unfortunately. And that's what we've been doing all our careers. So you're looking for judgment fluency, and that's trainable to a degree, but only if you know you're screening for it, But I also think that there are some people that are just more adapt to being that way than others. And I think that's going to be important.
Well, it's going to make a big change to not only hiring, but like the skill sets that are in demand going forward. I think for people that are like scared of AI, it's like, get into jobs that require like a high level of judgment and experience where AI can't copy 20 years of experience,
Yeah.
because if you're just someone that's pulling levers and like, for example, in accounting, accounts receivable, accounts payable, I'm pretty sure those functions are going to be toast pretty soon because it's a rule-based thing that,
Right.
paying an invoice. But someone that actually as a a CPA who's looking at the books and giving you, as a controller, some advice about how we can structure and forecast and everything. That's more of the judgment piece where, yeah, that's not going to go away because you kind of need that business savvy and so on, right? So,
Exactly. Yep.
but the thing is, I guess what I've heard in terms of the worry is because those low end or let's say entry level, mid level jobs are going to be gone, people are going to not have the opportunity to sort of come up. Like it is a learning experience, right? Starting from the bottom. Like I started as as a grill chef at Wendy's and
Nice.
moved up into different things and got into staffing and recruit. Like,
Yeah.
there's a whole process of building your career, building your experience, learning those soft skills, learning those even tactical skills, which we need.
Yeah.
And if we automate all the tactical stuff, how do you become an expert and an experienced person if you never got the chance to go through? I mean, sorry to say, but you have to go through the shitty jobs to get the good ones later, right? Like you have to learn.
It,
So
it,
that to me is
it,
the issue now with AI. It's going to eliminate a lot of this grind, which is great for us senior people. Great. I don't want to do the grind, but for the upcomer, people coming up, it's like, well, you're going to go to straight to become a CEO because everything else is automated. You can't
yeah.
become that because you haven't gone through the, it's like the old
It's
adage
a
of
big shift.
learn and
And
yeah,
let's not forget there's colleges training people to graduate right now for a workforce that's completely changing under their feet.
yeah.
Right. I'm just a messenger.
No, I'm not blaming you.
No,
I'm
but I
just
want to say is
saying,
I wrote the book because I realized, look, I'm not going to stop the trillions of dollars that are being invested in AI. This is a massive force, and the whole reason I wrote the book is because I saw all these problems, and I said, look, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. Let's do it consciously. Let me
yeah,
turn this black box into a glass box so we know what the hell this is about, so we can speak about it and not have this be this scary, mysterious thing, because that's going to just add more tension to the whole situation. I want to relieve that part. I want to take that off the table. There's still going to be problems to deal with, but if I take that off the table and now it's controllable, and people can feel like, okay, we got this figured out and we got this controllable, and now it's going to shift to more like, okay, this is the thing. What do we really want to do? Like before AI, like I've done brand strategy. Like I've rebranded companies, like a Telesign, which is like a cybersecurity company. And when we do these sessions, like I start off before, I'm not an order taker. Like I'm really pushing, like, where do you guys want to be in 5 years? Right. And that's like
mhm,
the first question, because that's going to help me understand the trajectory. Like, are we doing like just a slight shift, or are we transforming to a new paradigm? Like, what is it? And I'm going to say something right now, which is every company think of AI as some kind of transformation, because it is. And I don't think you should be thinking 5 years. You need to be thinking about what you wanted to do in 10 or 20 years. Why? Because what took 10 or 20 years to do will probably be able to be done in a year or 3 years. I think people are used to the timeline of like the old way. The new way timeline is insane. Like I just updated 3 of my websites in about a week, which would have taken months the old way. And
yeah,
it's like, what's more important today is, what do you want to do? What is the direction of the organization? Um, what have you want to do for years that you've always just had in the background and just like ignored? That's becoming more important because it's more achievable now.
yeah,
I also predict there's going to be companies that I predict like 10, 20 people companies competing with like blue chip companies, right? Because they can. I have a friend who believes it'll be down to one person, possibly, right? If you know what you're doing. Uh, all to say that Your vision is more important. What you actually want to do. And by the way, all those people that maybe were thinking of being employees, like maybe they should be employees, or maybe they should think about doing their dream and trying that out. I mean, there's going to be a lot of shifts happening right now. Uh, and I'm not judging any of it. I'm not saying it's good or
Yeah.
bad. I'm trying to say, look, if that's what you want to do, great. Let's do it. Let's do it with control. Let's do it with a vision, and let's map it out, and let's make it a reality. And let's not just talk about it. So I think that
Yeah.
is going to become more important. Your point of view is probably the most important thing right now.
Well, and the barriers to entry are completely getting easier, and just I've seen it just on our end, being able to, we started our business in 2023, and the amount of tools we've had to be able
Right.
to leverage admin and everything else to, punch above our weight class, let's say, being able to do audio, video, and everything quite easily now with all these tools.
Yeah.
The barriers to entry have dropped dramatically. Like, you could have one person do so much in terms of marketing, for example, with all these tools that
Yeah.
you probably need a whole department 10 years ago to do this.
Right.
Just the video
Right.
editing alone, with the tools we have is amazing. Maybe one day I'll have my dream of being a movie director with Sora.
You don't need to
in
wait. You can do
in
it
5
tomorrow.
years, I'll be able to
Start
make my
today.
own movies. Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely. But you know
it's
what, John? I'm
crazy.
going to say something. I love that you said that. I'm going to say something. As a filmmaker, you know what's more important than that is like, what's your story? What's the script? That's hard. Writing is hard. It is the hardest thing to write. It's like that's the problem. You have all this possibility. Uh, you need point of view to narrow it down into like, this is what we're going to focus on. This is what we're about. This is why. I think that's hard to do for most. I mean, that's what I do naturally because that's the work I do, and I'm pulling that out of people, and I'm always doing it for myself. And you know, for me, it's more important to understand how messaging ladders down through a whole progression for a whole workflow, for example. And where does that come from? I'm pulling from that brand AI identity, the brand experience, because brand experience, a lot of people don't realize that brand experience is outside. What's inside of brand experience? Customer experience, user experience are inside of brand experience. That means that brand experience is a giant lever to influence customer experience and user experience. That's why if you come from the outside and you go upstream and get this right, as you go downstream, everything's going to line up and ladder up, and it's going to be more powerful for you. And all this is like experience. It's going to be experiential eventually, right? Right now we have the ability to make AI experiential, and we're barely using. Like, we can talk to AI now. The tokens
Yeah.
are expensive, so that's probably why a lot of people are not doing it. But eventually, the token cost will go down, and we're going to have conversations with AI. And we don't think much of it. Like right now, we're in this really weird place, but it's going to shift, and I already see it. We already went through this in 1999 with websites, right? I
Yeah.
remember, like, I was like a student, and I remember like working with like Caltech. They were doing the coding. We didn't even understand what each other was doing barely. And there was someone in the middle kind of guiding us, and we made it our website. And I just remember like how dumb websites were back then. And for those listening who don't know, like, if you had to change your logo on 50 pages, you were changing it 50 times, not one time, because there was no CMS structure to do that. AI is just as ridiculous right now. And I don't blame anybody who's confused, scared, or frustrated by the results they're getting, because there's no containment, there's no container for AI right now. And that's why people are having problems. So I want to get people up and running so they can have this built. And so now you have this platform, so to speak, and now you can put like a workflow on it. You can put 10 workflows. You can scale it to hundreds of workflows, depending on how big your company is and what your need is. And it's all going to be coming from the same brand experience. It's always going to be on brand and on point, and speaking in your name in the best possible way. And eventually, probably, I mean, branding's always been this thing where it's like, yeah, branding. It's like, it's aloof, right? How do you measure it? It's going to be so measurable once you implement this, because these are machine rules. There's going to be actual documentation.
Yeah.
It's going to start to get a metric, because it will have metrics working in place in order for it to execute. So this is actually the ultimate. Brand's always been the ultimate, but we've never been able to measure it, right? It's like with data. Data is always like, the big promise of big data was like, oh yeah, big data. Well, what was the problem? Attribution, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's always a mess. Well, AI can look at unstructured data and figure out what the hell is going on in a way that a human never could, unless they spent hours or days or weeks working on it, right? And they can do it like in seconds. And so now we're talking about vectorizing databases. Now we're connecting databases across different departments, right? And now, for example, the story I told earlier, the sales, marketing, and sales and support, those three need to be sharing a database, because if they don't, marketing is going to optimize for volume, sales is going to optimize for conversions, and maybe support's going to optimize for closing tickets, right?
Yeah.
Which have nothing to do with the customer at all, but like somehow that needs to come together as one experience. Otherwise, you could have what's called the collision, and the collision is when the AI sees one AI sees that thing, another AI sees another thing. The customer sees three different experiences because it's optimizing for all these different things, and maybe the tier that they chose should have got them a white glove treatment, and instead they're getting this support, like auto support with no human behind it, and they're feeling gypped, right, and lied to.
That
So
that that makes sense, and also, I would say that also ties into, like, employee experience as part of brand, right? Like, you want your brand to be
absolutely,
consistent with your employees, with
absolutely,
your external customers, and then you're right, across it's funny because from support to customer to marketing, it's like you wanna create that customer journey for that customer, regardless of what department is being involved in.
right,
If you don't have that
exactly,
communication, that's a key thing. So I get that. I mean, technically right now they probably do it through like CS notes in their
yeah,
CRM and so on. And
yeah.
this is when they called, but having an AI being able to review the customer, then segment the customer based on their performance, how risky of a customer this is, how profitable they are, and then give you the data all on all of it holistically
All
would
the
be awesome.
boring stuff that the sales team never wants to do.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
don't
No,
blame them, right?
that
How
would
many
be
salespeople are
really
like, oh, I got to
awesome.
fill out this form after this call? Like, it's just done for you. And then you can focus on like the real stuff. By the way, soft skills are not going away. Soft skills are going to become more important than ever. And that's something AI can't do, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are not going away. Don't get me wrong. I think we're just talking about the procedural part, and that needs to change. And they have to get new kinds of training. I think, but more importantly, the company needs to understand what they want to do with AI or without, whatever they're going to do, but they need to figure that out first. And then once they make that decision, commit to it and start doing something about it. Right. So, I mean, I would say if you're in HR listening to this and thinking, okay, where do I start? What do I do in the next 30 days? Right. Well, week one, inventory the shadow ledger, make a list of every AI tool touching employees or candidate workflows, recruiting, HR ops, benefits, learning and development. And then uh, if you can't list them, you can't govern them, right? So that's the first step. Week two is identify commitment moments. Decide what moments in the employee life cycle that cannot be improvised, like offers and compensation, all that termination language. Those moments must have tighter rules and a named owner. And then I would say week three, charter your first evidence packet, pick one workflow and require receipts starting this week. An example would be performance write-ups. Require the system to store what policy was referenced, what inputs were used, and what human edited it and approved it, and when it was delivered. So you have some kind of proof of what happened. And I would say week four, install escalation triggers like low confidence, missing data, emotionally charged topics, all that. It's about slowing down the few moments that can hurt you. And that's containment before full control, but you lower the blast radius while you call someone like me to build in the bigger system.
It totally makes sense. And I'd like to bring up too, just from because obviously we're in the recruiting business, so it's important to kind of discuss it. But we see a lot of AI tools in recruitment now coming up. You know,
Yeah,
it's a hot topic for us because we're basing our brand anyways on real relationships rather than AI
right.
algorithms.
Yeah,
And it is a people centric process, and so I think I'm a strong advocate for the humanist sort of view about it because it's a very important decision changing jobs,
yeah,
for your family, for your life, and so on, right? So
exactly.
AI is a part of it. What are you seeing out there in terms of companies that are getting it right and or getting it wrong in terms of AI use in recruitment? And have you seen,
Yeah,
what can you speak to as far as that? Because there's a lot of different tools for this, right?
yeah. But I would say the problem they're going to encounter, and because this is so new, and I'm already seeing it. They're going to have what's called collisions, which I mentioned earlier. It's too easy it's so seductive and easy. And I've had these sales calls. I listen to these guys like, wow, that sounds amazing. But then when
Yeah.
I step back and go, how is this going to talk to this and talk to that? And how is this all going to really work together? You realize I was going to create a mess eventually. Right. And so I would start, if I'm with a new client, I recommend an internal workflow instead of an external, so that you can save embarrassment, right? The employees can laugh at the AI if it makes some weird decision, right? But maybe you do a workflow that is not as critically harmful to like internal operations, but that way you get your feet wet. You start to see how this works. And I'm still creating like the system, like I'm scaling from something that I'm creating a foundation that is scalable. So even your workflow, the first one, now we can scale it, but we can learn from that. We can have that, we can test it, and then we can decide, okay, let's start connecting this to other data sources or whatever needs to happen, right? Or we have 2 or 3 separate workflows that don't touch anything at all, which is fine. But once they start connecting other things, you'll have problems that need to be architected. Or if they're not touching things that they should be touching, like I mentioned, sales, marketing, and support need to be in alignment. You're going to have different kinds of problems as well, and you're going to hurt customer experience. So that's what they're doing. It's so simple. They're just not. There's no plan. There's no strategy at all right now. They're hiring. It's like I remember back in the day. There's people hiring coders to make a website, and what's the coders ask you? The coders are like, great. What are your colors? They might have that, but okay, what are we going to say? What do you want this to do? And suddenly leadership's like, well, I don't know. I mean, just make the website. It's not like that. Like it's what are we about? What are we trying to do here? And that all has to be figured out and answered up front and first. And I'm sorry, not by AI. I've had some people come like, oh, here, just execute this. And I look at it, it's like, there's no fidelity here. There's not enough information for me to do what I need to do to help you. Like I have an entire process. It's all in the book. I'll give you everyone a link for the first chapter. It's free. I think it'll be pretty clear in one chapter what it's about. And it's the thesis for the entire book. And there's even like an assessment, a shadow ledger assessment to see where you're at. And you can kind of get a score and get an idea of what your, what your gaps are really, and figure that out.
No, that's great. We'll share that with the notes. So tell me about this book. When did you start writing it? What would give you the inspiration for it? And
Sure.
how has it been, writing a full length book? Because it's not easy.
Remind me if I miss any of those questions. I'll have the answers for all of them. But I would start by saying, why did I even begin writing? First, I was looking for the building blocks of AI to help a client out over a year ago. And I started with AI in 2020. I was using the API already. I've been using it for like doing like marketing intelligence, stuff like that. So it wasn't foreign to me. And I've also built a whole platform, a learning platform using like AI avatars. So I got into AI gen and everything. So, but having said that, I was trying to solve something closer to what my book solves for a client. And I realized that the building blocks are there, but they're all scattered in bits and pieces. They're in these technical documents. And so I put everything together and I looked at it and realized how convoluted everything was. And so my book is really for leadership. It's, believe it or not, it's actually in simple language. It's not a technical book at all. The first chapter is really written for the CFO, because the CFO is the one holding the purse strings on any AI initiative right now. And they need to understand what's this costing them negatively and positively if they do it. But as I did that, I created an entire system. This was for myself first. I realized, well, they're going to ask this question. They're going to ask this question. So it was kind of like this grid of like, I knew exactly what to do. And I realized that the objections that would come up and the confusion, and I started to write. And I realized this has to be a book. And as I wrote the book, I got more pulled in. And as far as like the process of writing, of course, I'm using AI to help with that, but it's really, again, the point of view, like what am I trying to say? So it's really important to have that actual solution. It's IP that I've built. And that IP is kind of being referenced throughout the book. And based on that, I was able to like expand this and really detail all the details of like how to talk to your IT team and what you're really looking for and for them to do and all these things. But it's great to be really inspired with a vision and just have, and really be able to like see it come to life. I had countless revisions on the book, on every chapter. Always the goal was like, it's too complicated still. It's too technical. Like I need to get this more simplified until it got to the point of like, okay, if I give it to someone who knows nothing about this, can they start to identify and read it? So I added a character in the book who's interesting. So there's some like storytelling, but it kind of shows you what's going on internally and what they're having to face and all the tension that happens inside of the company in order to make these decisions, and also falling in the pit holes that I'm describing with those gaps, and then crawling out of it and getting to the other side and realizing like, oh, that's why we need this. Like, it's not just a thing. Because a lot of people try to solve these things one at a time. Oh, we fixed governance. Oh, we fixed the identity problem, or we fixed the receipts problem. You need all three all at once at the same time. You can't. You're going to be playing whack-a-mole indefinitely until you address all three at once. And this is the one thing that nobody has addressed. Like my book has a pyramid image, and it's in the first chapter. You'll see it. That's what wasn't clear. It was like so hidden behind words and other things that I just wanted to make it so clear. Like I examined hundreds of case studies of AI. Most of them were negative because no one we're fighting through to figure out how this works. But between that and a few good case studies, like J.P. Morgan has governance, and they have like 200,000 employees on it, and they have guardrails. Good for them. But that doesn't address the identity gap, right? So there's a lot more there. It goes deeper, and so I was just trying to cover every possible thing you could think of for AI on the control plane, so that whatever comes your way, you have a way to deal with it and address it and scale your system around it. That also means, by the way, you're not beholden to any model. This is agnostic to any solution. You can put whatever solution. You're going to have your own MCP, probably some internal server running a local LLM that's going to be like the director. Again, like the director's role on the film set is a bottleneck on purpose, not by default. Everything's flowing through me and then going out. It's the same thing. It's gonna flow through this. That's why this strategy is so important, because everything's going to flow through that, and it's thinking. And that way, that's how you get your company in alignment. And there really is no other way. I mean, if you're wondering, well, what is this based on? This is based on logic. The way software is based on logic. This is based on data primitives. And I'm getting nerdy here, but I'm just like,
Yeah.
These are the foundational blocks of everything that we have in the tech world. And that's what it's based on. And it's not going to go away anytime soon.
No, and I think also probably your model may be revised as AI grows and has more capabilities and so on, right? I mean, you're going to make some adjustments, but the fundamental idea of having a control center, I guess I would call it, or a framework,
Yeah, absolutely, exactly,
for everything to go through, like that's tailored to the company, is probably a good idea, because every company's run differently, different products, different service, but also different culture and different sensibilities in terms of how they want to go around about things.
You just made me think of another note, which is don't buy this like SaaS, right? SaaS, you're trying to like fit it to your, no, this is a custom design, and you want custom design. When you do a rebrand, that's basically, it's custom designing a company. It's custom design. And I think companies avoid custom design because it can be pricey, can be really involved. But I'm trying to say this is infrastructure. This is transformation. This is like, are you doing this or not? If you're doing it, don't do it half-assed. Do it all the way and do it right, because you will feel the pain, and hopefully not a regulator knocking on your door. You're going to want this control. You're going to want the platform, and it's going to make your life so simple. You want to swap out a voice model? No problem. It's like done in a half of the day, like whatever. It's not going to be like a complete rebuild, because you've built the foundation that allows for swinging doors, changing things, all the time. That's not a problem at all. The governance doesn't change that. The guardrails stay implemented. And maybe, I don't know, 3-5 years, you might want to update things after you pull back and see, okay, this is how this is operating. Again, that's not going to be a massive shift, because we already have something in place, and now we're updating it or revising it as needed. So this is going to be a thing, John. This is going to be like, when websites came out, you had your webmaster. I don't think they have those anymore, right? You had your webmaster. You're going to have your AI master for your platform, right? You're going to have someone like me come in and tune it up, and then, you're back where you want or need to go, or on the right trajectory, and you go from there. That's what it's going to look like. That's how this has to be. Otherwise, it's not going to make
and
any
we've
sense.
heard it on the grand scale of, and this is just the side, is for Gen AI, they're saying, oh, we need to teach Gen AI similar to what you're saying, is build a framework for control.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying on Gen AI, let's teach it to be motherly and nurturing, so that when it does finally take over the world, it's going to want to take care of us rather than, take us out.
Well, hey, we're not even talking about government, but like this system would work for government too. And if we're going to have AI inside of government eventually, it better have guardrails. It better have a system like this in place, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, let's say, better minds prevail in terms of thinking about doing what you're advocating for, because right now it seems like we're full speed ahead in generating, developing, integrating AI. I've heard of companies trying to cut workforce. And from what I hear from a lot of the word on the street is no one is seeing the ROI from bringing AI in.
They
It
never will
sounds
see
like,
they never will see the ROI. They never will see it until they get a system in place.
yeah. Well, that's I think that's a case study. We gotta see the numbers on this, like how much people are losing by, they cut the workforce, they bring in AI, it's done haphazardly or without a proper system. They lose money, then a quarter later, we got to hire everybody back because it didn't work out with this new system, or
Yeah.
we were trying to be efficient and we did it. So, and I guess at some fault, you can't blame them because they've never had to do this before. This is a
And
whole new
they
thing.
treat it like a software update. That's what they treated it
Yeah.
like, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of a
That's what it
whole
was.
new way of doing business in a sense of like, as you said, onboarding a new class of employee. So
Yeah.
great thoughts. Go read the book for more. And thanks for coming on the pod today. So great
Yeah.
insight.
And I just want to say real quick, if you want to reach out to me, it's Alan, ALLEN, Martinez, Martin with an EZ.net, or my agency, nobledigital.com. That's NOBLE digital.com. And of course, the actual solution, the brand experience is under bxaios.com. And if you go to /shadow-ledger, you can do the assessment there.
Yeah. And we'll share all the links in the show notes. So really appreciate you today.
Thanks for
Thanks.
having me, John.
You too.
All right.